One person that was down there giving us the best perspective possible, literally on the field, on the great call for Ducks Broadcasting. It's 1080 The Fan Zone. Dusty Harrah coming back from Pasadena right now. Dusty, thank you so much for taking the time in a, I'm sure, very busy post game for you. Wow. Seems like that long layoff for Oregon maybe hurt him. What was the driving factor for that terrible performance today? Do you think it was the layoff? Do you think it was something else, Dusty?
Well, they definitely weren't sharp out of the gate. That's for sure. I mean, it looked like Ohio State was playing in fast forward, and Oregon was stuck in neutral for a while. And you can chalk it up to the layoff and say that there is that rust versus rust. But the reality of it is that, well, I believe Ohio State, and I've said this all year long, Ohio State's roster is one of the most talented in all of college football. They're living up to it now, and they really are. The last couple of weeks, we have seen this Ohio State team play like the team that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of this year. And they jumped on Tennessee early. They jumped on Oregon early. Chip Kelly, in that Tennessee game, I said he was in his bag and back to looking like the old Chip. Well, the opening drive was indicative of this is when Chip Kelly is in a rhythm as a play caller. This is what Chip Kelly looks like when he's in his bag and he trusts all of his weapons that he has at his disposal. Because the very first play of the game, after just beating Tennessee over the head with quick screen, they go to that little bubble screen with the tight end leaking out, and boom, he releases up the sideline, and they get him for a big gain. They have a play fake, and the end crashes down, and Will Howard was an incompletion on the second play of the game. But Will Howard could have run for 15 yards because the end crashed down, and he tried to thread it in there, and it was incomplete. Third play was a touchdown, and scheming guys wide open, that's what Chip Kelly does really well. But the defense was suffocating. There was not a single error on that defense. I mean, maybe the second Trayshawn Holden touchdown where he was wide open. They were on their cues, man, and that defensive line and that front seven, I've said this week, like, Oregon's offensive line played flawless in game one, but this is what that front seven looks like. Motivated. They said, and they have said for weeks, that, we took that Oregon loss for an opportunity to look within, see what our defense needs to do differently, and they have been a different unit since then. And that team played like the best team in the country. I mean, there's no other way to put it, man. They have been holding things back course of the season, and they have let loose the last two games, and it's impressive.
Dusty, I want you to go into a little bit more detail on what Ohio State was doing with Caleb Downs in the secondary. They switched to this 3-safety lineup and just kind of let him be a ball player, essentially. If he needed to drop into coverage, it felt like he always found the open zone where Dylan Gabriel wanted to throw it. If they were running the football, he always seemed to be the last guy in that made the final tackle. He either cleaned it up or he made a one-on-one spot. What was Caleb Downs doing today specifically that really shut down this Oregon offense and confused them?
That Alabama was one of the most impressive instinctual players, right? That's what I think Nick Saban referred to him as. Like, his instincts were through the roof, his football IQ, and you said it right there, right? Like, they let him just read and react, and he was a force to be reckoned with. It is not very often that you see a guy make a play at the line of scrimmage and then make a play in the back end of the secondary, 20 yards downfield. He was able to just play loose and free. And look, that also starts, though, with the defensive line and the linebackers. Simon was outstanding in the game. Jack Sawyer, Tuimalau. Those guys up front, like Williams, they were able to create a stalemate so Caleb Downs could see a hole and fill it, right? And that it's not just Caleb Downs being this impressive freak. It's Caleb Downs has the ability to read and react and just fill lanes that are being created by everyone else around him. And 11 guys played about as damn perfect of a football game as you could, especially against the run, man. I mean, you look at it and you say, yeah, sack yards meant a lot. They got home 8 times in that game after not touching Dylan Gabriel in the first matchup, right? They get home 8 times in this game. But against the run, you look at Jordan James, Noah Whittington, and Jane Lamar, they only account for 21 yards on 15 carries as running backs. It was they won the battle up front. They owned the battle up front. They dominated, man. But for Caleb Downs, it was truly a scheme this week to where it was all right. You can just read Dylan Gabriel's eye. You go from the line to Dylan Gabriel's eyes, and if you read run, go be a ball player, make a play at the line of scrimmage, and he did. And if it was Dylan Gabriel is dropping back, he just got to play loose and free, and he is one of the best safeties in all of college football. We knew that when he transferred from Alabama to Ohio State, what kind of player he was, and Jim Knowles and that defensive staff have really unlocked him.
On the other side of the coin, Dusty, talk about on Oregon's defense, the lack of communication there. I heard you mention during the game to Jerry and Jorgie between the secondary. That just is something that they've been so good at all season. They're so on with each other, at least being on the same page. So why do you think they were so just discombobulated today in the secondary?
Well, I think there was a lot. It has a lot to do with, Chip Kelly's scheme. And we always used to say, like, hey, how's Jeff Mail always that open, right? Like, he's the best receiver that Oregon has.
Yeah.
And he was always open. Well, you create conflict in the back end, and a few times they're running route combinations where when you have a Jeremiah Smith, 2 guys are going to pay attention to him. You have to do that. And when you have a Emeka Egbuka and Carnell Tate as other receivers in there, those guys are really damn good. This is the best receiving core in the country. And what they would do is they would occupy one safety and replace him with another guy, whether it was, running Jeremiah Smith on a corner route to take the attention of Kobe Savage, and then, Emeka Egbuka on his big touchdown, he just comes right back behind and replaces where Kobe Savage was. And so the other safety has to rotate over. It puts you in conflict and puts you out of position. So it was one part scheme, but another part, like Will Howard, he was throwing balls up, and Jeremiah Smith was just going up and high pointing them too. Like, I mean, there were times where guys were in okay position, but then you have this, 18-year-old freak of nature going up and skying to the ball. I mean, well, good luck, man. And I think that was a big difference too from the first time Oregon played Ohio State to this one. It seemed like they played this season almost like the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Where at the beginning of the year, it's a marathon, a 12-team playoff. There is a little bit of wiggle room. You can afford a loss. You can work through some things. At the beginning of the year, they weren't force-feeding guys, but crunch time, absolutely they would. But like we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, everybody's like, oh, what's going on with Travis Kelce at the beginning of the year? Why isn't he getting the ball? Well, it's the setup for the payoff. You got to figure out what you have in your other pieces. You want to get them comfortable and get them into a rhythm. And then at the end of the year, you start going to Old Reliable, right? And Old Reliable for them is a true freshman who is an absolute mismatch no matter who is defending him. And they just threw the ball up and he went and got it, man. Yeah, I was stunned. And Will Howard does not get enough credit for, how good of a quarterback he is. But today, he was out of this world. He was everything that you could want and a little bit more. And I think that, as we've said with Dylan Gabriel and as the season has gone on in 1 year, you grow from being new to a system to mastering the system. I think we're seeing that with Will Howard as well.
Dusty, obviously this isn't the ending that Duck fans wanted, but at the end of the day, you still went out. You were undefeated through the regular season. You won a Big Ten championship. You beat Penn State. You beat Ohio State in the regular season, and you beat Michigan. You're the first team to do that, and I don't know when. Will Oregon fans and will the players and coaching staff be able to have a positive spin on this season, or is there always going to be some sort of bittersweet what could have been left with how the ending was in the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, I think there's always going to be that shoulda, coulda, woulda, and you always want to be the last team standing, but the reality is there's only one, right? And the idea that this season wasn't successful, I think, is foolish and it's hot takey. You say it wasn't a successful season, but did they achieve the goal that they wanted to? No, because they didn't shy away from the fact that this program now has, national title aspirations, and you can have success and not reach the mountaintop, but still have a little bit of that empty feeling, and I think that that's okay to have, because there was a lot of good that happened in this season. You're going to have to go and fill a lot of really big holes and big shoes to fill, and there's a lot of question marks moving forward, right? Tosh LaPoy said they're going to try to get Bryce Betcher a fifth year and see if he can come back and play one more year. If that happens, boy, that affords you a lot more. You can exhale a little bit because of the fact of what he would mean to, that linebacking core that will lose Jeffrey Bossa, and that will be a big hit. You're going to lose Jordan Birch. That's going to be a big hit. You're probably going to lose Derek Harmon because he's going to be a day one draft pick, right? Jabbar Muhammad is out. This is where recruiting and it's going to take a lot to kind of reload this team, and you got to move forward and still have that same goal in mind. But there's going to be some massive shoes to fill. I was just talking about it on the defense. Offensively, you may have even more than Dylan Gabriel and Tez Johnson because there's a lot of really dang good football players on this team that, may want to test the waters in the NFL. And then also the portal is always open, right? It's always open for business. No matter if they say it's closed, it'll open again in the spring. So it's going to be a really interesting time to see how they rebuild this roster and keep moving forward. But the reality is they've done a really good job of recruiting both high school and through the portal, and their retention is really high as well. So you can keep guys around and continue to develop and grow them. That's going to be nothing but good for the program. But the other thing about this though is what does the coaching staff look like too? With the success that Oregon had this year, do some of those guys get head coaching opportunities moving forward? And we have to reshuffle. We don't know what lies ahead, and I think that kind of stinks.
Dusty, you've been covering this team all season, and I wonder if I want to try to end this on a positive note. I wonder if you've got like a favorite memory from this season or something that stands out to you that kind of just tells the story of Oregon football, or if there's really something that, just makes you smile when you think of it as you look back and reflect on this 2024 Duck season.
That's interesting. Oh, man. There's a lot.
Sorry to stump you, man. I was just trying to go positive,
Yeah, no. Yeah, and it's weird to say right now because of how the season ended against Ohio State, but
yeah.
That Autzen Stadium on October 12th, that was an electric environment, right? And that was incredible. The fans rushing the field and the mayhem that ensued after that will stick out, but right now isn't like the best time to sit there and be like that rocks. But I think just going through and the celebration after the Big Ten championship and to see the players and the coaches, finish off what their first notch was, right? The first notch was to win the Big Ten, and they got to that in year one of being in the Big Ten. And to see kind of the, players and coaches have that little release, because everything is always business as usual with them. And, the next game is the next game, and you get 24 hours to appreciate a win. But there was an actual celebration in Indianapolis, and that was really cool to see them, finish off that 13-0 regular season. But there's a lot that has gone into it. A lot of the things that, like when you just see how the offense and the defense, usually in college and the NFL, right? Your units are completely separate. But to see how they would rally each other throughout the course of a game or over the course of the season, and the offense picking the defense up and vice versa, and things were going well for the other side. You even saw that today. Before the dam broke, they still had that rallying cry, like, it was 17-0, and they were like, hey, we just got to stay the course. We just got to chip away at this thing and keep going. And I think you saw that in the way they ended the first half and started the second half. They knew they had to be perfect, and those two drives, they said, all right, we got this, and the offense had the defensive back and vice versa. But it wasn't enough because they were playing a buzzsaw tonight. Ohio State is a really damn good football team, and I know Coach Lanning said, look, X's and O's can go ahead and be, looked at and will be questioned, and everybody will do that, and it's okay to do that. But players also mean a lot, and the players for Ohio State tonight were pretty dang impressive. Because you know how good Oregon's players are. They were good enough to go 13-0 in the regular season and beat this team once. But the Ohio State players and their staff, that was as close to a perfect game as you can play.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dusty. I'm a huge Ducks fan. I got my bias, but I'm putting my tail between my legs, and I'm walking home after this one. It just wasn't the performance you wanted. It wasn't the one you expected. Dusty, really appreciate you. 1080 The Fans, Dusty Harrah, Oregon Sideline reporter. Really appreciate you checking in. Please get home safe. Enjoy the rest of your time down in Pasadena. And as Dirt and Sprague told you the other day, Merry New Year, my friend.
Yeah, that's right. Merry New Year. Have a good one, fellas.
You too.
We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. We'll have Dusty back on 1080 The Fan, hosting with Danny and Dusty from noon to 3 every single day. That is Monday, I believe. He'll be back on Monday.